All right, today we're diving into a story that is just wild. It sits right at the intersection of a bizarre medical mystery and an absolute legal nightmare. And the craziest part? It sounds completely made up, but it's 100% true.
So let me ask you this. How is it possible to get a DUI without drinking? I mean, really think about that. You're pulled over, you blow 3 times the legal limit, but you know, deep in your bones, you haven't touched a drop of alcohol. For a man named Donato, this wasn't just some weird hypothetical, it was a real-life nightmare that almost cost him everything. That's the exact question Donato's partner Michelle pleaded with the police. She's looking at the man she loves, who she knows wasn't drinking. They're looking at what seems to be an open and shut case of a drunk driver. That disconnect between her reality and their evidence is what sent them spiraling. To get how they ended up there, we've got to go back.
Yeah, to really understand that DUI charge, we have to rewind the clock. Because long before any flashing lights, Donato's health started to completely fall apart, and nobody could figure out why.
It all started with something so ordinary, a routine surgery back in September 2015. He got an infection afterwards, got a course of antibiotics, and you'd think that would be the end of it. But instead of getting better, things just got worse and worse. By November, he had a massive seizure. And for the next year, it was just a revolving door of hospitals. No answers, no diagnosis, nothing. And then it all came to a head in the fall of 2016 with that unbelievable DUI arrest.
And we're not talking about just feeling a bit off here. The symptoms were absolutely terrifying. Donato was sleeping for 3 days straight. His speech was slurred, he couldn't walk, he was having memory lapses. At one point, his body swelled up with 60 pounds of fluid, and he needed oxygen 24/7 just to breathe. To Michelle, he looked drunk all the time, but she knew, with every fiber of her being, that he wasn't drinking.
Get this number in your head, 38. He was hospitalized 38 times. That's 38 separate chances for doctors and specialists to figure this out, and every single time, they came back with absolutely nothing.
So you see, there were 2 totally different realities playing out. The doctors, they saw symptoms that looked a lot like alcohol withdrawal, and it just didn't add up. Meanwhile, Michelle saw the exact same symptoms, but she knew the one critical piece of the puzzle they were all missing. Donato did not drink. All she could do was watch helplessly as the man she loved just got sicker and sicker.
After more than a year of this absolute hell of confusion and sickness, a random conversation with a cousin, who just happened to be a doctor, finally gave them a name for their nightmare.
Auto-brewery syndrome. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? But it's very real. What it means is that the ecosystem in your gut gets thrown completely out of whack, often by something like antibiotics, killing off all the good bacteria. When that happens, fermenting yeast can just take over. So this yeast would take any carbs Donato ate and turn them into pure ethanol, right there inside his own body. He was, quite literally, brewing beer in his gut.
So, to prove this wild theory, the doctors decided to run a controlled test. They put Donato in a hospital room under super strict supervision. No outside food, no visitors, nothing. The idea was simple. Feed him carbs and see what happens.
And what was the scientific trigger for this crucial medical test? You're going to laugh. It was a piece of chocolate cake from a vending machine because the hospital kitchen was closed. So Donato eats the cake, and then,
Less than an hour goes by. Donato and Michelle are just kind of dozing off, and then suddenly, the room just explodes into chaos. The lights flick on, nurses and doctors are rushing in with IV bags, heart monitors, complete and utter panic.
A nurse ran back in and basically yelled this at them. His blood alcohol level was through the roof, all from a single piece of cake. It must have been so scary, but for Michelle and Donato, it was also this moment of incredible, overwhelming relief. They weren't crazy, they finally had an answer.
but here's the thing. Getting a diagnosis, that was just one battle. The war was a long way from over, because now they had to find a way to treat a condition that almost nobody had even heard of. So Michelle gets on the phone. She called over more than 108 hospitals and doctors all over the U.S. begging for anyone to help. And one after another, they all said no. No one knew how to treat it. No one wanted the case. They were completely and utterly on their own. Their breakthrough finally came from a local doctor who, even though he'd never heard of ABS, was willing to listen and willing to learn. He ran detailed cultures, found the exact strains of yeast that were causing all the trouble, and realized they were resistant to the usual drugs. The solution? It was intense.
an 8-week course of daily IV antifungals, all done at home. And incredibly, it actually worked.
So now, with undeniable medical proof in hand, their lawyer was able to go to the prosecutor, and boom, the DUI charges were dropped. The legal nightmare that kicked this whole thing off was finally over.
After everything they went through, Donato and Michelle decided they had to speak out. They knew their story could help other people who were suffering in silence, probably being written off as closet alcoholics. And their message is so powerful. This condition isn't actually rare, it's just rarely diagnosed.
A huge part of their mission now is fighting these common misconceptions, like the idea you can just go on a low-carb diet and starve the yeast out. You can't. You have to kill it with targeted medicine. And maybe the most painful myth of all is that the person is secretly drinking and their family's covering for them, when the reality is it's a legitimate, involuntary medical condition.
Tragically, Donato passed away in 2020 from something completely unrelated to ABS. But Michelle has kept their mission alive. She dedicates her time now to raising awareness, to helping other families navigate this terrifying diagnosis, making sure Donato's struggle created a legacy of hope.
And all this leaves us with a really big question. Donato's story is just such a powerful reminder of how easy it is to judge, to misinterpret what we see, and to dismiss what someone is telling us. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other conditions are out there, hiding in plain sight, just waiting for the right person to finally listen and see the truth?